This is Audible.
Audible Sessions.
Samantha Shannon is something of a runway success. She began writing novels at the age of 15, was given a book deal before she'd even left university, and is now a New York Times and Sunday Times best-selling author, responsible for the brilliant Bone Season series. Samantha joins me in the studios to talk about her latest book, The Song Rising. Welcome to Audible.
Thank you.
So, The Song Rising, it's out very soon, I believe. Can you tell us a little bit more about it?
Well, The Song Rising is the third book in the Bone Season series. In this book, Paige, who is my main character, she's an Irish clairvoyant, and she has become Underqueen of the Clairvoyant Syndicate of London. And she's intending, unlike previous leaders of the syndicate, to actually go up against Scion, the dystopian government, which persecutes clairvoyance. So she has a really big task on her hands, because she's basically having to turn a band of ragtag criminals into an army, which is not what they signed up for at all. So it's definitely a book about her kind of coming into her own and discovering her skills as a leader and kind of figuring out, you know, herself and her feelings and her sort of long-term goals along the way.
Wow, that sounds like a really exciting plot.
Yeah, no, it's quite a lot more fast-paced than the first two Bone Season books.
So, not many authors get such an impressive book deal at the age of 20, which I believe that you did for the first book in the series.
Yes, I was 20, yeah.
How did it all happen?
Well, I basically wrote the first book while I was at university. I started writing it in the summer of 2011 after I did an internship at a literary agency in central London. And the particular district of central London I was in was Covent Garden. And there's a little junction called Seven Dials there. And I was so intrigued by this place. And I didn't realise, but it does actually have quite a rich history of revolution. It was very important in the Victorian era. It was a kind of slum, and it's gone through lots of different phases of development. But to me, it just struck me as this really kind of quirky place, and there was also a lot of shops there selling crystal balls and tarot cards and stuff like that. So that kind of got me thinking about creating a London where clairvoyance was illegal. And I rolled that together with an idea I'd had about supernatural creatures in Oxford, which is where I was studying. You can take from that what you will about my university experience. So I rolled the two ideas together. I was working on it at uni, and when I finished it, the author Ali Smith came to our college, and she basically was offering to give students feedback on their writing. And I sort of very nervously sent her the first chapter of the Bone Season, and she gave me the most incredibly enthusiastic feedback and said how much she thought I should send it to an agent and try and get it published. So I sent it to the same agent I had done an internship with, not expecting him to want it particularly, because he doesn't really represent fantasy generally. To my surprise, he did want it, so I went with him. And a few weeks later, I think, I had my book deal with Bloomsbury.
Wow, that's so exciting. So Ali Smith was obviously quite heavily involved, I guess, in getting your first book noticed.
I don't think I would have had the confidence to send it to an agent without her. It was just that final boost I needed to kind of sort of send this book out into the world.
Absolutely. Do you still speak to her? Is she?
Not that often. I mean, she's a very busy lady, but I always have like a special place in my heart for her, and I'm just so grateful to her for kind of just saying, you know, you really should do something with this.
Absolutely. What a way to start out.
Yeah.
Obviously, clairvoyancy it features very heavily in your book. Yeah. Why did you choose to write about that? I mean, is it something that you're really interested in?
It really wasn't at all. Like, I didn't have any. I guess I might believe in it to some extent, because I'm always too nervous to actually go and have my tarot read or anything like that, or have my palm read, because I think that if I got a bad reading, it would play on my mind. So I guess I have a kind of nervous respect for it, but I haven't actually ever got involved in it in any way. It was just that when I saw these shops in London with the crystal balls and things like that, I just thought it kind of reminded me of the Salem witch trials a little bit, and how it would kind of make a strange kind of sense for us to persecute things that are associated with the occult and kind of unnaturalness and other worlds. So I just kind of grabbed that, and I also couldn't think of a book where they'd done kind of clairvoyance as a big magic system, like with lots of different categories. I mean, one might exist, but I hadn't come across one, so I thought I would do that.
So you've never been to a clairvoyant?
No, never. I don't think I would. I'm just too scared.
Even now, you're not tempted?
No, like literally, I was at a book launch recently, and an author I know does tarot readings, and I was like, nope. I just completely ran to the other side of the room. I was not having my tarot read.
No, I completely understand that. So, your book's been so successful, your series, and there's been comparisons to J.K. Rowling, to Philip Pullman. How do you feel about those comparisons being made?
Those ones are particularly daunting. I mean, I wouldn't personally compare myself to either Rowling or Pullman. I mean, certainly I hadn't actually read Pullman's books, even though there is that Oxford link. I am a huge admirer of him personally, though, and I have now read The Northern Lights, which I absolutely love. I need to read the next two. And J.K. obviously was a huge part of my childhood, and certainly I think all fantasy authors aspire to create something as incredibly complex as she created, like this huge, sprawling, colourful world that has all its own. It's just so fleshed out, like she's thought about every corner of it, and I really wanted to create something of that scope while also not ever personally comparing myself to her.
So have you planned out the 7 books? Do you know where it's headed, or is that something you'll do later?
Well, I mean, I broadly know where it's headed. I mean, sometimes, with the songwriting, for example, the final plot is quite different from what the original plot was. So sometimes I can write it and then it just doesn't work for whatever reason, or I change my mind during the writing of it. But I do have sort of the broad arc of each book planned out, and that's kind of, I go in with that kind of outline in mind every time.
So did you start off knowing that there would be 7 books?
Ideally, I wanted 7 books, yeah. I mean, I knew it was a bit of a risk to go to a publisher as an untested debut author and say, oh, you must do all 7 books. So with Bloomsbury, we originally signed up for 3, but they always knew that I wanted to do 7, and they were really behind that. And when the Bone season did well in terms of sales, then they decided to sign me up for the other 4.
Amazing. So another 4 books. Mm-hmm. Is it quite daunting to think about that?
It is and it isn't. Like, I mean, it is daunting in terms of trying to. I mean, I like to get the books out as quickly as I can, but obviously it takes as long as it takes. But I'm really excited about it, really, because every one of the books, I'm trying to make it a slightly different genre, so the reader never quite knows what to expect. And for me, that's really exciting. I'm really looking forward to kind of making each book really unique, so the reader can't guess what's going to happen in each book.
What's your writing process? Do you write every day, or is it a bit less frequent than that?
I try to write every day if I can. I mean, obviously, when you get near to a book's publication, you're a lot busier and maybe you can't write every day. But generally, I try to treat it like it's my full-time job. So I try to treat it as at least a 9 to 5 thing. But I often write much longer than that. I mean, if I'm near a deadline, I can do like 17 hours sometimes. But generally, it's more like 8 to 12.
Do you write at home then?
Yeah, I have my own apartment where I write.
Oh, lovely. So, rumour on the street is that there might be a film on the horizon. Yes. Can you tell us any more about that?
A little bit. It was bought by the Imaginarium Studios, which is Andy Serkis's production company. And Andy's going to be one of the producers, along with his producing partner, Jonathan Cavendish. And then it was bought by Fox. So it's Fox and Imaginarium and Churning Entertainment all kind of hold the rights to it. And it's, at the moment we've got a screenwriter. I'm not allowed to say who it is, but I'm really excited about her being on board. And that's kind of as far as we've got.
Wow, so no kind of characters being put in place?
No, there's no casting or anything like that. It's quite a slow process in Hollywood a lot of the time. But I'm really excited to eventually see the script when it's finished.
Any particular favourites for who you'd like to play the main character?
Benedict Cumberbatch to play Jackson Hall, Paige's boss. He's my only solid casting choice, though.
Sure. I'm sure he's most people's, right? So, obviously you've got your 7-part series, you've got the Bone season, but we know that you have a new standalone called The Priory of the Orange Tree coming. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
I'm very limited in what I can tell you about that at the moment because Bloomsbury hasn't even put out an official blurb, so I can't say a lot. I can tell you that it's about dragons. It's inspired by various things, including the Elizabethan court, Japanese folklore. It's kind of a sort of a feminist retelling of George and the Dragon, which is something I've wanted to do for a while. And it was basically inspired. I wanted to write a book about dragons for years, but I couldn't really think of a good plot. One night, my little brother came downstairs and asked me for help with his homework on the Spanish Armada. And suddenly I got this idea that I could make a fantasy world that was kind of inspired by the Elizabethan kind of time period. So there's lots of different countries that are kind of loosely based on real countries, and there's magic and dragons, and I think it's going to be good fun.
Amazing. So you said you've always wanted to write about dragons.
Yeah,
why is that?
I've been a huge dragon fan from when I was a kid. I think for my 6th birthday, I think it was my 6th, I went to see Dragonheart, which was like one of my favourite childhood films. Always loved anything to do with dragons since then. So this is kind of the realisation of an old dream.
Amazing. You've mentioned kind of books that you used to read. Is there any particular books at the moment or in the last few years that you would say are top of your favourite list?
Well, the top of my favourite list is The Handmaid's Tale by Margaret Atwood. That's my favourite book. It is also quite a seminal book for me in that it introduced me to both dystopian literature and feminism. So I wasn't really that aware of dystopian literature before I read The Handmaid's Tale, but then I realised there was this whole genre of books about places that had gone terribly wrong, and I just really kind of responded to that. I love pushing characters to the limit where everything they do is for their survival and for other people's survival, and it's just a really exciting environment to put a character in.
So your audiobook's narrated by Alana Kerr.
Yes.
Have you listened to your own audiobook version?
Yes, I have. I always listen to them when they come out. I still have to listen to the Pale Dreamer audiobook, which is the novella that came out in November, which is the prequel story of the Bone Season. But I love Alana. She has this really lovely soft Irish accent, which is such a pleasure to listen to. And I was really determined that we were going to have an Irish actress play Paige in the audiobook, because her Irish heritage is really important to her kind of character.
Of course. So what's it like to hear your very own story being read?
It's so strange and wonderful. I love hearing Alana's take on the different characters as well, because she puts so much effort into getting the accents right. You know, there's a character with like a Mexican accent, a Bulgarian accent, and she just goes for it. Like it's quite amazing. I wouldn't be able to do all those accents, but she really puts a lot of effort into it. And I'm looking forward to the songwriting, because there's characters from Scotland and Manchester, and I know that she's just gonna get those bang on again.
Incredible. So you've got the songwriting out. Will the 4th book be out kind of before the Priory of the Orange Tree?
I genuinely have no idea about that. It really depends what Bloomsbury wants to do. I mean, I hope the 4th book will be out within the next 1 or 2 years. I mean, I'd certainly be aiming to get the draft finished, so that's possible. But with publishing, you never quite know when they're going to bring books out. So might be that Priory comes out first, might be that it comes out second. I guess we'll hear soon, hopefully.
Amazing. Well, thanks so much for coming in.
Thank you for having me.
Good luck with the songwriting.
Thank you.
Audible hopes you've enjoyed this programme.